Good morning. Thank you all for being here. My name is Robert Brewer. I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of California. I am joined today by the following: San Diego FBI Acting Special Agent in Charge, Suzanne Turner; ATF Special Agent in Charge of the Los Angeles Field Office, Carlos Canino; San Diego Police Chief David Neslight; District Attorney Summer Steffen; San Diego County Sheriff's Commander Peter Calloward; Escondido Police Lieutenant Chris Lick; and my team of federal prosecutors on this case from the beginning and from the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division: John Parmalee, Shane Harrigan, Peter Coe, Caroline Hahn, and Rose Gibson from the Civil Rights Division in Washington. We are here today to announce federal civil rights and hate crime charges against John T. Earnest of Rancho Penasquitos in connection with the April 27 attack on worshipers at the Poway Synagogue and the March 24th arson of the Escondido Mosque. First, I want to express, on behalf of everyone here, our sincere sympathies to the family of the deceased victim and to all of those injured. Our actions today are inspired by our desire to achieve justice for all of the victims and their families. A criminal complaint filed today charges John Earnest with 109 counts, including 54 counts of obstruction of free exercise of religious beliefs resulting in death and bodily injury and involving the attempt to kill. That's one count for every person in the synagogue on April 27th, including 12 children. Each of these counts is death penalty eligible, plus 54 counts of hate crime acts. Again, one for each person who was targeted in the synagogue on April 27th. And we have also charged the defendant with one count of damage to religious property in connection with the March 24th arson at the mosque in Escondido. The complaint alleges that Earnest took one life and injured 3 other people, including a child. This federal complaint alleges that these crimes were explicitly motivated by hatred toward the Jewish and Muslim communities. It also alleges that the defendant posted a manifesto online in which he claimed to be inspired by other hate-motivated killers responsible for the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh and the Christchurch, New Zealand mosque shooting. As alleged in the complaint, the defendant armed himself with a loaded semi-automatic assault rifle and a vest having a total of 60 rounds of ammunition and drove to the Poway Synagogue with the intent of killing those inside. According to the complaint, in his manifesto, he stated, quote, "As an individual, I can only kill so many Jews," unquote. The complaint alleges that after the defendant fled the scene, he called 911 from his car and identified himself as the synagogue shooter. Among other things, Earnest stated to the dispatcher, quote, "I just shot up a synagogue. I'm just trying to defend my nation against the Jewish people. They're destroying our people. I opened fire at a synagogue. I think I killed some people," unquote. He also admitted the responsibility for the arson of the Escondido Mosque. Plainly stated, the complaint alleges the defendant violently targeted members of the synagogue and the mosque for no other reason than his hatred of the Jewish people and those of the Muslim faith. Every citizen, no matter their race or religion, all of our community members have the right to worship and live in peace. As alleged, the defendant wanted to destroy those individual fundamental rights when he attempted to burn down a mosque and violently kill innocent people who were simply gathered to worship. Federal, state, and local authorities have been involved in this investigation and the prosecution of this case since the Escondido Mosque arson occurred on March 24th, and have done so because of a zero tolerance for the perpetration of hate crimes targeting any group, including religious groups. We are here to announce a united front against hate and against violence in our houses of worship. We will not allow our community members to be hunted in their houses of worship where they should feel free and safe to exercise their right to practice their religion. We are working side by side to make sure that this case is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. As you know, the district attorney has also filed criminal charges against the defendant. Going forward, we expect both cases to proceed at the same time. The defendant is expected to make his first appearance in federal court on these charges next week. I would like to acknowledge at this time the hard work of my prosecution team under the leadership of John Parmalee. They have labored around the clock to obtain justice in this case. Likewise, all of our law enforcement partners from the FBI, the ATF, the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Department, San Diego Police Department, and the Escondido Police Department have done exemplary work in this case, and I commend them for their dedication. I am proud to be a part of this team. Before concluding, I want to remind the public that a charge is merely an accusation, and the defendant is presumed innocent until proven guilty. I'd now like to introduce Suzanne Turner, Acting Special Agent of the San Diego FBI Office, to say a few words.
Thank you, Bob. I also want to express our condolence and sympathies to the victims and all of the families in this case. In the last 12 days, our team has been working relentlessly to thoroughly investigate this investigation, to find any type of evidence to bring this individual to justice, so that we can start to move towards securing and saving our securing and having our community feel safer. And also, we've been working since March 24th on the arson in the mosque up in Escondido. The FBI looks at these investigations and have been working these two specifically jointly as a hate crime and domestic terrorism investigation. These investigations take time, and we appreciate the public's patience, cooperation, and continued support. From the very start, the San Diego FBI responded in full force to the scene in Poway at the synagogue to this tragic incident to bring whatever resources were needed. We assisted in countless interviews, served multiple subpoenas, processed a lot of digital evidence, and looked at a lot of tips and leads to determine if there were other threats and tended to the victims. I'm honored to stand up here with this team. It is the law enforcement partnerships that we have built and maintained that have allowed us to work side by side seamlessly to bring all of our law enforcement resources to bear on the synagogue shooting and the mosque fire. Our partnerships with the San Diego Sheriff's Department, San Diego Police Department, Escondido PD, ATF, the District Attorney's Office, and the U.S. Attorney's Office has allowed us, and were critical partners in this investigation, and allowed us to bring these charges both state and federal. The FBI takes allegations of hate crimes very seriously, because it not just impacts the victim, but its intent is to threaten and intimidate an entire community. The First Amendment protects freedom of speech, even if that speech is hateful. However, when those words communicate and threaten people, and those words move to violence, the law enforcement partners are going to use all of our resources to bring that individual to justice. On March 24th and on April 27th, the action taken against the mosque in Escondido and the synagogue in Poway and those victims inside in those places of worship were criminal and based on hate. The FBI and our law enforcement partners have worked a thorough investigation regarding the planning, the preparation, facilitation, and commission of these crimes. We worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office here locally and DOJ Civil Rights to determine what the best federal charges were to bring. This community knows all too well how words can turn to violence, the feelings of hate that can grow into something far more dangerous. Law enforcement alone cannot prevent these acts. We need the community to remain vigilant and aware. If you see something and you're concerned, please contact law enforcement. Allow us to utilize our resources to determine if there is a threat and if we are able to prevent an act of violence. You can contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or tips.fbi.gov or any law enforcement entity to provide that concern and allow us to follow up. It takes the whole community. It takes you, the public, working with us in law enforcement to prevent the next tragic event. We must do everything in our power to stop these individuals who move from words to violence. We must do everything we can to educate people about diversity and the strength of our differences. But we also need to have the power to bring these people to justice if they act on this hatred. Hate is a very different crime. It strikes people in the heart of who they are, their sense of self, sense of belonging, and it results in loss. A loss of trust, a loss of life, and in this case, Lori Kay, and a loss of sense of security for all of the victims and our community. Please know that if we cannot prevent a hate crime, like in this case, the FBI and our law enforcement partners will do everything in our power to bring that person to justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. It is my practice to have the trial lawyers who will try this case answer any questions that you may have. Shane Harrigan and Peter Coe, please come forward. They will answer your questions.
On page 13 of the complaint, it talks about the firearm, how it says a federal firearm licensed dealer in San Diego sold the firearm to Ernest. Was that purchased legally, and if so, how? And if not, is there going to be charges moving forward?
Please understand our comments are limited to the complaint itself and the facts alleged therein. I can say that there is no allegation that the defendant violated federal law when he acquired the rifle that he used in the violent attack on the synagogue.
Can you say whether or not he had a hunting permit?
That allegation is not in the complaint, but please understand, as the criminal process moves forward, more information may be available to the public.
When will the decision be made on whether to pursue the death penalty?
So as with the state and the district attorney's office, the federal government has a death penalty process. The only individual who can determine whether we will seek the death penalty is the Attorney General. And obviously our office will work to get together the information and provide the Attorney General with all the information necessary to make that informed decision. Understand also that we will be consulting with the victims in this case, the family of Lori Kay, the deceased, the rabbi and others who were specifically injured, as well as all the congregants in the synagogue, because as the U.S. Attorney stated, our charges here today recognize that there are wrongs not only against those who were actually physically injured, but everyone there who was just there at the synagogue that day to pray, just to simply worship in peace. And they were wronged also, and that's a key part of what the federal charges bring here today.
The complaint says in addition that he picked up the firearm on the 26th, which was the day before. Was that the day that he purchased it? And also, what about the ammunition? Do you know when he purchased that?
Again, we're limited to the allegations in the complaint. I hope you understand that. I think more information may be forthcoming. I think you also understand that under California law, there is a waiting period, but that allegation is not in the complaint.
And what about the ammunition? Do you know, was that purchased at the same time?
What we do know is that when he drove to the synagogue, he had 60 rounds of ammunition. That's what we do know from the allegations in the complaint.
Will he remain in state custody for now?
That's a good question. Because we have parallel prosecutions, we anticipate, as the U.S. Attorney stated, that next week, we believe it will happen at 2 o'clock on Tuesday before Magistrate Judge Michael Berg. He will make his initial appearance. He will be brought over here on a writ, a federal writ. After making that appearance, he will be then returned to state custody, and we will continue to bring him over as each subsequent federal hearing occurs.
Just to clarify, both federal and state cases will be tried at the same time. Is that common procedure? Does that complicate anything?
Well, I understand this from even the beginning of the investigation of the arson. We have been working with our state partners, with the district attorney's office, since the date of the incident on April 27th, the date of the attack. We have been working closely with the district attorney's office. They will work on, we will be proceeding parallel. Ultimately, the decision on what case is tried first or how this is handled will be a joint decision. And understand, though, that any decision that is made will be in the best interest of the case and of ensuring that this defendant can be punished to the full extent of the law.
This complaint covers the 54 people that were inside the synagogue. Was there any consideration of the people that were inside the mosque at the time of the fire up there?
Yeah, understand that this complaint is just a complaint. We always are, the investigation is ongoing and are considering other charges. Obviously, though, what we have charged here is the destruction of a house of worship, because it is a house of worship, that he was motivated because of his hatred toward those of the Muslim religion.
Did he admit to the arson as alleged or outlined in the complaint? Was that over the phone or in subsequent interviews?
As alleged in the complaint, it was the open manifesto that was referred to that he posted online. And I believe that's included in the language of the complaint.
Anything else? All right.
How likely is he turn himself in to not call 911 and turn himself in? From cases that you've handled, how typical is something like that of someone that may have committed crimes like this?
We're not going to speculate on how typical this is for any type of crime, but we do know that he acted violently with hatred towards other, and as alleged in the complaint, this was planned.
Do you believe he wanted to be caught?
I'm not going to speculate on what his inner thoughts were.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank law enforcement for being here and the district attorney. Thank you all. This concludes this press conference.